So, Graham,
Yes. Luke?
50, 50 years in the business since you left off on your first gig with, I could never pronounce his last name, Chris Christopherson.
Oh no, that was later. It was
Later,
Sherbet was the
Sherbet
first.
was the first one.
Sherbet were the first. I left town at the end of year 12. Um, uh, there were two concerts that I did. One was with Kamal in Toowoomba, and the other was with Sherbet at the Capitol Theatre in Sydney. And I count the Sherbet concert as sort of like the start of the game.
Graham Zero.
Yeah, because they had a promoter called Don Herring, and Don was, he saw something in me that thought was worth developing, and had put me on some tours already with Sherbet after I finished school, and so he got me the invite to open for their Christmas concert. After me came Richard Clapton. He was the second opening act, and then the La-Di-Dahs, the loudest rock band in history, and then Sherbet, of course.
Holy.
And so that was Christmas in 1973, and here we are in 2023.
Holy.
50 years.
50 years.
Like that.
Yeah, in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
So you went on, did you do the full tour with Sherbet or just a couple
I
of
did
tours?
some various regional tours with
Regional
them. Yeah,
tours, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. It was a huge eye opener for a kid from the country. Like just they're at the height. They'd packed houses every single night. They were filled with just that wonderful enthusiasm of rock and roll, and the whole band. Clive Shakespeare, the guitarist, they were all really different personalities. Garth Porter, the keyboard player, was a lot more sort of subdued and managing the thing. Daryl was that incredible front man, just, like...
Command the crowd.
What a great voice.
Yeah.
There it is, Alan Sandow was a drummer. He was just amazing. A powerhouse, but, bit of a powerhouse off stage
As well.
As well. And Mr. Mitchell on bass. He was Tony Mitchell. He was one of those great, just down the bottom end, hanging on. Yeah, they had Roger Davies was managing them at the time. Roger Davies has since gone on to manage the careers of Tina Turner, amongst others.
It's only small acts.
Yeah. He was a man with a mission way back then. So I'd say I was very lucky that I got to see the mechanism of success up close, and to recognize that, it's all about doing the job. It's like luck is always going to be part of it, but at the end of the day, that band did probably 6 shows a week, 6 weeks in a row, and they built an amazing following.
So after you did the shows with Sherbet, what was that next? Because I remember you telling me a couple of weeks ago that your career started well like that, and then there was a bit of a silent period for a while.
I had a good 2 years, really good. The first 2 years of my career, after I'd finished the Sherbet, opening for that, Del Shannon came out, and I opened the show for Del Shannon. He was a great star from the 60s, sort of rock and roll period. A wonderful character called Patrick O'Hagan, who was an Irish tenor.
Nice.
Who, talk about, I was opening the show for Sherbet over here, and then Patrick O'Hagan. So the audiences were like Teen City, and over here it's like at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And it was just, Bill Cosby, Dave Allen, Chris Christopherson and Rita Coolidge came in the next year, 74. which was only 6 months into my career. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And then later Peter Allen, Liza Minnelli, the Marsha Hines and John English, Peter Ricks, Marsha's manager and John's manager, you know, shepherded me through to a certain degree to with those support act roles, and it was just wonderful to be, you know, imagine side of stage watching Marsha Hines doing her thing. You learnt so
Straight
much.
up too. Like that's like you were 19, and then you're there beside these gods of the age.
Ah,
Like,
fabulous. And, you know, just Peter Allen side of stage, that was a couple of years later, but seeing talent like that just burn so brightly. And you know, obviously, I think I've always probably been more the songwriter type of person, and because I always found that extroverted nature of performance to be a little difficult. But watching people like that, you realise that it's something you can work on. You know
you
what I
get to
mean?
learn
You
skills.
can learn skills, and you know, eyeballing your audience, really, like not just talking to the walls, actually looking at your audience and communicating with your audience. That's the great power of entertainment, and I love going to, whether it's 20 people, 200 people, 2,000 people, go to an artist who's actually engaged with their audience. And some people might say 20,000 or 200,000 people, how can you engage? It's a spirit thing. It's just like you're present and the audience is part of your whole, you know, you're reaching out to. Anyhow, I love the entertainment industry, you understand. Really
Probably
do.
why you've done it for a little while.
Yeah, that's right. I find entertainers, songwriters, creative people generally, and that runs right through the spectrum, you know, photography, the whole thing. I just find it wonderful what makes people tick at a creative level, because a lot of it's got to be self-motivated. You know what I mean? Like you have a certain talent. You got to work at it. It's not like talent is just going to get, you know, gift is not going to get you right through. There's a point at which you've got to go, okay, you know, where do I zero in? What is my special gift that makes it happen?
So it's really interesting you bring that up. I've been doing a lot of work with some athletes and coaches recently, and I asked a really great coach a couple of months ago, and it sounds similar. Like, how do you know if someone's got it, like got that professional X factor to become a really great athlete? And he said, usually it's not the guys with the crazy talent. It's the ones that make it 80%, because they still got to work that 20% to really get them over the line, and they're the ones that stay on and go on to be the greats. Do you think that's similar in the music industry? Because they have to, someone that has the 80%, but they still got to work.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good generalisation. I think hunger's a really important part of it. It's really hard to sort of quantify this, but if you've got the basics for it all, you can really learn a lot. Some people who are just seemingly incredibly gifted, they burn out. It's almost like they're this bright flame that just burns out. Whereas the ones that can control it, I think of people like Paul Simon. You know, I look at him and think, staying creative over such an incredibly long period of time. What a great achievement! And he's hungry. He wants to create the best song that Paul Simon can create. I'm sure of that. You know, it's like, it's not that he doesn't know what his gift is, and he knows that sometimes he's got to really work for it. You know, there's the latest album, 7 Psalms. There's a wonderful series of interviews with him talking about the mystery of creativity and how he's given these little gifts, and then he has to go off and and work out what they are, and then piece together the music and the lyrics. And that's probably the stayers in the field. Generally, are those who understand the magic and know that they've got something special to offer, but also have the humility to know that it takes a bit more than just that. You've really got to do your get up in the morning and do your work.
Action.
Yeah,
You gotta action the magic.
absolutely. You can think about it as much as you like, but you got to do it.
When the first couple of years went really well on tour with some of these big artists.
Yep.
And then what happened to your career? So you're sort of like around 20, 22.
Deep dive. It was good for me though. It was really good because I didn't know, people saw more in me than I saw in myself. People saw potential in me, whether it was the sound of my voice, whether it was the ability to do the job. But I was still wandering around like a kid in a candy store. Aren't I lucky just to be here?
Yeah.
And then a few records came out. I was signed to Festival Records, and as much as they tried, I didn't come up with the goods. I didn't come up with that unique Graeme Connors song where people can go, that's Graeme Connors. It was just like I was doing the Don Lane show, I was doing all that sort of stuff with my songs, but they were a bit all over the shop, So I had to have that crash, I think, for me to pick myself up and recognise. Well, I moved into music publishing for a little while, took this job that just luckily occurred, and in that role, I was assisting other songwriters, trying to do demos of their songs, take them to record companies, pitch them to artists, and do all that sort of stuff, that I really learnt the whole concept of niche and powerful voice. Like be who you are, really find whatever it is that makes you tick and write that and make that. And that's where North came from, because I was right at the point of almost departure from the business. I was feeling sad and sorry for myself because I felt that all this promise.
Because how many years was this?
Well, that was now. I say it's the longest apprenticeship in the business.
Yeah.
It was 73 and North came out in 88.
Holy.
So that's a long time, 15 years or something.
What keeps you going? Like a lot of people
just
would
the
have
love of music.
thrown the towel in.
No, the love of the music. I don't know. I believed that I had something to say. I just didn't know how to say it. And also, not being a really social animal, we started having children and all that sort of stuff during this period. And I was a family man working in a business that was sort of like late nights and partying, and I was not really part of that because it was like I got more responsibility happening over here. So I probably wasn't interacting in the game as much as a lot of people do. And you learn from interaction. It's really good to have mentors and all that sort of stuff. A lot of what I did was from the outside looking in rather than from the inside looking out. Until, this sort of dark period, I was working at this publishing company, Rondour Music. I was doing a good job of that job, Still go home after a whole day of listening to other people's music and listen again to stuff that I really liked. And some of that was feeding me, and then I'd get up at 5:30 in the morning and start writing my own songs. Then I'd be off to the office and do that, and then Slim Dusty was looking for songs, and so I pitched a couple to him, and they were successful, so that reinforced. I'd assisted another songwriter, Mike Wade, he basically had this song called Hot Town, and he just wanted a few lyrics added to a verse and that sort of stuff, which I did. It built confidence when those things were successful.
Do you think that it was like you could see, like my recipe works. These
Yep,
people have taken it and they've applied their clear voice to it.
yep,
I just need to take that recipe and apply my clear voice to it.
that's right. My problem was, I think, I didn't like my voice, my clear voice that I thought was a bit high and a bit thin and all that sort of stuff. But little did I know when I recorded it, other people really liked it. So it's like, people sort of say distinctive voice, it's like, okay, there you go. I mean,
Yeah.
been sitting on this baby, been sitting on this baby for 15 years, So,
I could have just been me and been a success 12 years ago.
well, the content of the songs was important because I'd reached that real low point where, as I said, it was either do or die, and the project was really about a backstop. If I leave Sydney, I go back home with my tail between my legs a little bit, but still with an album in my hand to say, well, this is what I did. And then in years to come, my children will be able to say, well, we were all born in Sydney because he was pursuing his career in music, But little did I know, thanks to the incredible Diana Manson from ABC Music, she heard the songs and went like, this is exactly what we want to do for ABC. And next thing I know, I had a platinum record. But I mean, how do you, once again, the gift of someone like Di Manson was the turning point. I could not have done that alone. I needed her help and expertise, and ABC Records was the right home for me because my music was about Australia, and she arranged to put on some film clips just prior to ABC News, and it just went boom. People just a little further north each year, yeah, let the cane fields burn. Oh, cyclone season. It was like bang, bang, bang,
Do you think, like, something I've seen in the professionals that I've been around recently is that, like, all of them are people try and catch luck in their bedroom with a thimble. And then these people have just gone out, it might take them 15 years, but are trying to catch a bit of luck as well with the swimming pool, just being out there amongst it, doing it. You think that that's something to say for the generation of artists coming up, to not just sit in your bedroom and...
Look, it's a hard world. The arts world, since digitization, it was supposed to be, isn't this wonderful? You can go and make a record in your lounge room, put it up on the internet, and the whole world will find you, and you will be a major bullshit. Pardon the language. What a great con that was. So it's like, there are all these people saying, yeah, get rid of record companies. Yeah, we want the power. We're the artists. We can do it directly to our audience. Well, guess what? The record companies, the people who worked in the record companies were really, really important people. Yes, they maybe worked with some people and didn't work with others. And so those who they didn't work with got disgruntled and thought, why am I not a star, Truth of the matter was, these people could work with 15 or 20 artists in an A&R capacity, in a promotional capacity. He had all these people whose expertise was to get the music out there to other places. Now it's virtually gone. What do? You go and appear on The Bloody Voice or something like that. Well, that's the record company again, folks. I'm terribly sorry. It's like they own everything. You know what I mean? Like, you think you're an individual artist because you've got a career from The Voice. They own your next 7 albums. When I was in this sort of phase, the record company, yes, they owned the product in inverted commas. In fact, what they did, they licensed the product, which was a very generous thing to do because it meant that after they'd recouped their money, And if I wanted to move on or whatever, I could do that. I could take my product and go elsewhere. Nowadays, it's like everyone wants to own everything, you know. I'm, I just think the time will come again when we have to get larger networks than our lounge room. You know, like sitting there putting stuff up on the internet, yet every now and then you get this amazing tale about someone doing a dance or singing a song or standing on their head or whatever it happens to be, and the world finds, oh, look at this, 25 billion, you know, they're gone in 6 months. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, sorry, where'd they go?
I think that comes into like what you're saying before, like they're like, they had this massive heap of success and then they don't keep going with it, or
Well, they can't keep going. They're left on their own to do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's,
they don't know how to promote themselves and all
no,
that. Yeah.
you need a network of people who care for you, who love what you do. And all these great artists that we're now seeing coming to the end of their career simply because they're running out of life and time, they were all the beneficiaries of a system where they had great producers who worked with them, fabulous musicians who were working in the studio day after day after day. A lot of that, you don't get fabulous musicians in your lounge room, I'm sorry. You know, it's like you've got to generally go to somewhere where those fabulous musicians live. Or yes, you can get them dropped in digitally, you know, and all that sort of stuff, but there's nothing like putting people in a room. It's not the same. So it's like, I just want, I want all the young people to backlash against this and go, let's form our own record companies.
Yeah.
Let's all help each other. Let's get some marketing people and let's get some artists over here and let's start this whole thing again and get some power beneath what we're doing, and give artists a long-term career. As I say, you know, where's Bob Dylan now? I mean, a new Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan was the beneficiary, amazing talent, but let me tell you, he had all that. While he was busy on the road doing his thing,
Had his team.
he had his team still getting the next record ready, putting it all forward. The Beatles, any of those bands, it's all the same. They had an amazing network behind them. Elton John, you know, incredible talents, but also the figurehead for a large international group of people who loved music and wanted it to get out there the best possible way. Anyhow, I'm not disgruntled, don't get me wrong. I don't want to come across as if I'm...
Okay, with your team behind you now, with North, what's one of your favourite memories of being on the road with those albums?
Oh, well...
I know, how do you pluck one, but even just one that comes into your head that, you know, this one time.
Well, it's the first tour that I did thanks to the generosity of Harley Medcalf, who was a promoter. And Harley had known me in the early years of Sherbet and all that sort of stuff. I had no idea what I did next. I had this album that's selling, and I had to get out on the road. And he put together a tour for me, right? And we included up the Queensland coast and back down. We happened to do it in April, cyclone season.
Perfect time.
We got a couple of shows in. We got rained out a few shows. You know what I mean? He never ever told me to this day how much he lost on it, right? But the truth is, you know, we have worked together since that, you know. But just the first concert we did after I'd been in the wilderness for so long, and it's Graeme Connors, and Mackay Entertainment Centre, my hometown, is filled with people. And I walk out on stage and I haven't done a thing, and the applause, like a wave from the ocean, just, you know, you don't get that much in your life. I mean, a lot of people have trouble with their hometown audience. That was my reintroduction, because I think it was like, people were watching and listening and they're like, oh yeah, well he'll never make it, sort of thing. And then all of a sudden you come good, and they're like, he's one of us. He's a struggler, and he
done it.
came good.
We
We can do it too. Yeah.
we always thought he had it in him. We never lost faith.
Well, there were a lot of people who never lost faith. That's the truth. But at the end of the day, it's like there was nothing negative about that. It's just that's the journey of whether you go right back to Ulysses or something. You know what I mean? It's like man goes off chasing destiny, fails, eventually gets his stuff together and has a few wins, and then comes home the triumphant. You know what I mean? Like, look at me, look at me. So it's a classic tale.
Graeme Ulysses Connors.
That's it.
So then, when you've gone down the road with North, you've had your first concert in Mackay. Was that your first concert?
I think it was. Yeah,
Oh, well,
I'm pretty
what an
sure.
awesome,
Yeah, what a
a
start.
good setup.
Yeah. It was something. We went to Townsville and Cairns. I think that's where we came unstuck with some rain.
Yeah.
And then we headed south, and Coffs Harbour was washed out. It was just one of those,
But then you were touring then as a professional artist for how many years?
Oh, well, when I realised that was the game,
Yeah.
because my music is genre specific. It's inverted commas country. It's
How would you describe your sound and your music?
I say it's contemporary Australian.
Okay.
I mentioned place names, like anyone coming from overseas immediately says it's Australian music, right? I use production values that I think are international, but I know that my writing and my content is uniquely Australian. Songs like Before the Wet and all that sort of stuff, they really do speak of here, let the cane fields burn, as I said before. And that's been an ongoing thing with my career, because I just write about what I know, like that I experience. Now I've gotten completely off the track.
So you had this specific sound. What was those touring years?
Oh, that's
like?
right. So after that sort of pretty rough start, I mean, there were wonderful high points, but financially I realised you can lose a bit of money on this game. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, there's no doubt about it, as my friend found out. But we have worked together since, and hopefully that's balanced the books up. But I determined that I may as well just do this myself. It's like, I know what to do. You hire a venue, you hire a band, you buy advertising, you get airfares and hire cars, and you hit the road. You turn up at that gig, at that day, at such and such a time, you do your show, you pack everything down, you go again the next day.
Simple.
Yeah, well, it is. I'd been there with Sherbet, right? You know what I mean? I'd watched Sherbet do it. I'd watched any number of those, John English and Marsha Hines, their crews and trucks and all that sort of stuff. I was no stranger to the logistics. And I must admit, somehow or other, I felt good that I was investing in myself, It's like, having been on the sidelines for so long, I'm in the field of play, and I'm just like, I'm going to milk this for all I can, And I know that there's an audience out there in regional Australia that get my story, that get what I do. So we did do the 6 shows a week, 6 weeks in a row, right? And then we'd come home for a month, and we'd go and do it somewhere else, down in New South Wales. And then we'd go and do it across to South Australia and Victoria. Then we'd be down in Tasmania. The best thing I could possibly have done for my career was to take my music to people's backyards.
Yeah.
Because it's that sort of music. It's stories about Australian characters, and people identify with that. And I'm not in any way boastful by saying this, but I'm so fortunate to have, and I'm so grateful that I have the most loyal of audiences to this day, there are people who came to those concerts back in like 1981, 82, not 82, 91, 92, sorry. I'm a decade out. You can forgive me over 5 decades. Every now and then a decade slips. So there would have been 91 when we started that. And we went up to like Weipa and Gove and Darwin, Alice Springs, you know. And in time, we had such wonderful support that we used to hire a plane in Townsville and fly. It was like I was one of the quietest rock stars in the business, because we really had a great audience who were prepared to support us. So economically, it was very feasible to pick up a plane in like a Flight West, your own plane, with your crew and band and all that sort of stuff. And you'd fly up and do Cairns, then you'd fly across to Weipa, then you'd do Groote Island, then you'd do Gove, then you'd do Alice Springs, down to, Darwin, down to Alice Springs, across to Mount Isa and back to Townsville. So 7 days, 7 shows, and you could make that work, you know, financially. So then we started doing the Western Coast, Western Australia. We'd start in Darwin, and then you'd be down to Kununurra and Broome and Port Hedland, all those, Geraldton, all those great places.
See, I love that. Like, these are all, well, not all of them, but a lot are tiny towns, or like they're
Well,
so
they're
far
not
as
as
away.
tiny. Yeah, they're out of the way. But you know, if there's 8,000 people in a town,
Look, you're dead right, but some artists be like, nah, I only want to go to the big cities or the big towns and pull those kind of, like, it's not an 8,000 people show, I don't want to go.
good luck to them.
Yeah, that's right.
They're
2,000 people.
missing. They're missing an amazing experience. An amazing experience. You know, it's like some of those towns, Broome and all that sort of stuff, we might pull 400 people. That was enough for us to make a good living, night by night. But you know, the next morning before we leave town, you'd be in Kununurra or something, and you'd find this little place called Hidden Valley, and you'd duck in there at like 6 o'clock in the morning, do this exploration, and come out and have breakfast, and then have to get the plane to get to the next. We lived well, and we lived to the fullest, because we were exploring new territory. We had people who were there we've made friends with people who are still friends now to this day. And that came about from being on the ground, by actually getting out. And, you know, if you speak with someone like John Williamson, John was the similar artist of traveling from town to town, you know what I mean? Not for him just the big shows, it was the whistle stops, and finding also stories in the travel, you know, like there's something about driving 4 hours from Barcaldine to Winton, and your brain is just absorbing this flat land with emus, and next thing you know, those images are burnt into something that becomes a song. Wouldn't have happened if I wasn't there.
If you're flying from city to city
Absolutely.
or whatever. Yeah.
I keep thinking that it's like the business of music, sadly, is getting bigger and bigger, and the middle market and the smaller market's okay. You can go and work to 20 people at a little pub club venue, and you know, it's never going to pay for itself, but at least the venue generally will pay the musician to do it, you know, and they can make a livelihood over 3 or 4 nights a week. The middle market, where you used to do a lot of that, is sadly declining. And this coming year, for my 50th year, I'm getting back in the saddle to do those tours again through regional Australia. I hope it'll be a wonderful celebration and reconnection with an audience, but it doesn't matter. I want to see the country. I want to take the team. I want to play my music where a lot of it came from. You know, the Great Australian Dream. I was sitting in this bar on a Sunday afternoon in Cunnamulla, and on the screen was like all this American hip hop music, and I see some young Indigenous kids coming down the road, and they've got their baseball caps on backwards and their baggy pants and all that sort of stuff. And the juxtaposition of all this American culture with the heartland of Australia gave me that song, The Great Australian Dream. You know what I mean? Like, here in the midst of myth and legend, I feel I'm caught between Beverly Hills 90210 and The Great Australian Dream. So the lyrics of that song, you know, baseball caps on backwards like they wear them in LA, that could only have happened if I was sitting in that bar on a Sunday afternoon in between shows at Cunnamulla.
That doesn't get any more Australian than that. than that. Wow.
So I'm an advocate for stories. Tell the stories of your people.
Yeah.
That's what I'm an advocate for. I don't see any point in sitting in Sydney, Australia, writing songs that talk about, well, I'm just going back to Texas. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't
Not
see
authentic.
it. What's the point?
Yeah.
It's like, go and live there if you want to. I mean, Keith Urban, what a fantastic success story. But Keith had the vision and the understanding, pack up and go. 10 years, I think it took him. What, you won't get a louder applause than you get from me for someone like that who saw where his strength lay, and it was at that international level, and it's proven again and again. Fabulous talent, will out, you know, and endurance. Endurance is a big part of that. You know.
With like you've written for some like humongous artists, you've toured with humongous artists, just being in the scene like at different awards and that, been around these people. Who were some of your favorite people in the industry, artist-wise, that you got to share the stage with or interact with or something like that?
Well, I have to say, John English and Marsha Hines, particularly Marsha, I used to go on tour with John first, and then he'd come back, and then Marsha would go out. And Marsha was like, she was always mindful that she had a team, and she treated everyone in that team as a really important person. Individuals, and you felt valued, and you felt part. You never felt alone on the tour. And of course, say with John, it's boys, you know, a bit more of a boys show,
Boys
right?
club.
Yeah, that's right. And so there's a lot more partying and fun and all that sort of stuff. But Marsha's it was a more sensitive group generally, and some incredibly talented musicians in her band that I really enjoyed the company of, and I learnt things, you know, about brass, you know, horns, things like that, things that I could never have learnt without someone like a Mike Bukowski or something who was in Marsha's band at the time. Yeah, that was of great enjoyment. I'm trying to think. Internationally, you know, I learnt a great lesson from Bill Cosby. I was opening the show for him, and I used to do this sort of bit of a fun parody on Pub with No Beer as a sort of a humorous thing, and then I'd be doing my own little. These were songs that had no direction, you know. I mean, they were like little love songs, or what happens to be. And then I'd do a couple of songs from Bread or whatever's famous at the time. And he pulled me aside and said, you know, Graeme, I hear you doing other people's songs. He said, you know, that's fine. You can do that, but if you really want to make a lasting impression, you've got to be the person who generates the songs. You've got to be the person, you sing your own songs, you tell your own story. And that, coming from someone like him, went down deep. It made me really lock into the idea of start writing songs seriously and look for something within yourself that is unique, you know. And that did in time lead to the sort of sound I have now.
What would you tell there's kind of two eras I want to go with. The 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Well, I would tell the 18-year-old self, stand up, be proud of who you are, stop thinking that because you came from the country, you didn't have that some sort of, you were less a person than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I went through a lot of insecurity about did I have what it takes. And I think enjoy, number one, just stop thinking, don't overthink this stuff. Play music, have fun, do all that sort of stuff. Don't strategize, don't feel like, oh God, he's so good, look at me, I mean, and I went through a lot of that as a young person. And it's a detrimental, you can't be silly, I mean, I've met people who, trust me, have got such an over-bloated opinion of themselves, they're never going to reach their potential because they don't have the potential. That's simple. They're never going to work hard. They're never going to, they just seem to think that God placed them on this planet so they can display their almighty self.
Yeah.
And that's boring. It's so boring. But when you're dealing with people who love music, love art, love to entertain, confidence is a really big part of that. And if you've got confidence early, it means the work you're doing is probably incrementally more successful.
Compounding on itself.
Yeah, that's right.
Would you say the same? So that was to the 18-year-old self.
Yeah.
What about the just before North self? When you were ready to pack up?
Well,
so I know there's some art, especially in the art field itself, whether it's photography, music, more traditional art or whatever, people that might be just on the cusp of something, but then they pack up and
well, you'll never know if you don't give it that last shot, whatever that last shot is. And the last shot, I'm evidence that you can have 15 years between making your first
first show or
first blow of the trumpet, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And then staying with it. But see, it was never a chore for me. It was a passion that I wasn't getting right. I wasn't seeing, I just needed to get that light bulb. I needed that extra confidence. There's a lot of stuff that needed to happen. So if I was talking to the guy that was in, say, I think it was about 1986 when I started the project, I think you have to say, see, everything turned out okay. All that sweat and worry and fuss and bother, and there was a good thing waiting just around the corner. So you got to embrace. You said it before. Action. You got to do things.
Embrace the process of the action.
Yeah. Just don't sit there thinking, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that, maybe I'll do that. You got to do it, and then live with the consequences. And generally, proactive leads to success. I don't know why, but just being there, people seeing you do your job, you find people who care about you and want to help.
10 minutes. That one's full.
Is it stopped? Damn. Just give me a second, Graeme.
Yeah.
We're on card. Oh, 1 and 2 are full. Crikey. That's okay.
I talk too much.
No, we can keep going with this one.
Okay.
I kind of want to
Wrap
tie
up
it in,
anyhow.
tie it in with what's next. What are you working on at the moment?
Yeah.
Here we go. I'm sitting down.
Well, already I've said touring.
Yeah.
To tour, it's always nice to bring out some new music. So I've got half a dozen tracks in various stages of production. In February this year, I'll be spending some time and energy getting those into a more coherent form. I want to see. I generally look at April as a release date because it's around my birthday. I give myself a birthday present, a new album. So I'm looking at that, and then we're doing all the festivals like the Gympie Muster and Savannah in the Round, and there's one in Western Australia, Red Dirt Festival. I can't think of them all right now, but it's great because we're doing all those, plus we're doing these sort of the mini tours where we just go into the regional centres. I don't know. I think I just want to do what I do and get joy and satisfaction. Be part of a community where we're having fun. You know what I mean? I've done the hard years from my perspective. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be sweating over stuff anymore. It's if it isn't enjoyable. I mean, I like work. Don't get me wrong. I don't sweat when it's productive, and that's great. But I don't want to be sort of like overstaying my welcome either. You know what I mean? If this could well be the big sort of 50 years bye-bye. I have no idea, you know. It's just, it doesn't feel like it's going to happen that way, but you do have to get to a point where you say, what more have you got to say, buddy? You know what I mean? And if you haven't got something to say, then it might be time to just sort of go, see you down the track.
We had a good one. Do you think, I was reading on your website last night, you're always in the process of trying to write the perfect song?
Yeah.
Is it still in the process?
Absolutely. And sometimes I think to myself, why do you put yourself under this pressure? But it's a joy, you know. It's like I just said before about sweating it. But the truth of the matter is, it's a game to me. The perfect song is a game. And it's like every now and then I get close. And it's like, it's like a game of golf. It's like, you know, aren't I smart?
Yeah.
You come back the next day, you know, it's like, gee.
Maybe not so smart.
Yeah, maybe not. But you know what? If I keep doing it, it's going to get better. So I listen to other artists, you know, like particularly right now when we're talking, it's the wrap up of 2023. So I'm going through all the lists of, you know, people saying their favourite artists for the year. In case I've missed some, I'm sort of listening to the music and that sort of stuff. So I still love finding new music, but I also love the people that I grew up with, the music that the John Prynes of this world, the Randy Newmans, you know, the Beatles, whatever it may be. There's something about that beautiful familiarity. But there's also Harry Chapin, you know what I mean, Harry Nilsson, you know, these are names that a lot of people, I don't want them to forget, because maybe in time to come they'll be saying Graeme Connors. I said, who's he?
No way. I always, when I've spoken to some people in the last, or since we first met last year, so there's about 13 months since we shot November
That's
last
amazing.
year.
Isn't that amazing? And the book cover looks fabulous.
Yes, I need my copy.
Oh, I should have brought it with me. It's coming, I promise. I didn't want to put it in the mail because the mail is so expensive and so impersonal.
You're a famous country music singer, Graeme. I'm sure you're good for it. But like I'll say to people that like, oh, I'm shooting Graeme or we're interviewing today or whatever, and there hasn't been one person that has gone, Graeme who?
There you go. Yeah.
Especially Australia-wise, everyone knows who you are.
There you go. Well, it's lovely. It's lovely to get away with it for 50 years.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time, Graeme.
Thank you,
and
Luke.
I look forward to seeing you on the road.
Wonderful.
Thanks.